Thursday, January 12th for the January school board meeting. This is the month we reorganize the board, so I'll be taking starting off the meeting, then I'll be handing over to the board chair once we get started. Before we go into the moment of silence, I do want to take a moment to talk about some of our students that were, we lost 2 students that have been identified in the accident in Nelson County and Rockfish River, so we want to keep them and their families and friends in our thoughts and prayers as we move forward. We also have an additional student at Amherst County High School that is still listed as missing, and that body has not been found. So we want to, again, keep those individuals in our thoughts as we move forward. I also ask that we keep the staff of the high school and Amherst Middle School, as well as the rest of the staff in the county, in our thoughts as well as we move forward, because not only does it impact the families and friends, it also impacts our staff. And we try to build those close relationships, and when we lose students, it definitely impacts not only the students, but our staff as well. So as we go into the moment of silence, I ask that we all keep those in our thoughts and prayers moving forward. So let's now rise for the moment of silence and pledge of allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So first, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Greiser, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Item 2.01 is elected chairman, so we need to select a board chair.
Dr. Wells and board members, I would like to nominate Mr. Chris Terry as the next chair of the Amherst County Public School Board.
Second.
All right. Anyone else? Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Mr. Terry, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll hand you the gavel.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, Coke.
Yeah, we need to swap your nameplates too.
Yes. Go, Juice.
Water.
All kinds of stuff. Coming with a lot of baggage.
That one's mine.
Okay, I think we've moved all of our baggage. So, moving on to 2.02, we need to now elect a vice chair. And I would like to nominate Miss Abby Thompson.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Ms. Thompson, congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
So moving on to 3.01, Dr. Wells, you have a recognition for us?
Yes, I want to come up there. I hope I can talk enough. So we have our Teacher of the Year support. Teacher of the Year and support staff of the year. And so we have a selection committee every year that looks at numerous criteria in evaluating the nominees to determine these recipients and their recognition. These educators represent tremendous leadership, passion, and dedication to their respective positions. And so we're going to recognize them this evening. First, I want to start with Miss Allison Ashton. Would you please come forward? Read a little bit of a bio here. So Ms. Ashton's been an educator for the past 19 years, teaching at the elementary and middle school levels. She is currently teaching math at Manelson Middle School. Additionally, Ms. Ashton has a strong background in STEM and is currently teaching robotics to students in grades 6 through 8. She currently serves on the Manelson leadership team, the ATSS team, and the sixth grade team leader. Mr. Ryan White, principal of Manelson, stated, "Everything Ms. Ashton does is student-focused, and she measures her success by the success of her students." Ms. Katie Wood, assistant principal of Manelson, stated, "Ms. Ashton works hard to get the students excited about math and robotics while helping them overcome everyday roadblocks they may have. She understands that relationships and communication are among the keys to each student's success." So, Ms. Ashton, we want to thank you for all you do for Amherst County Public Schools and your students. We present you with a certificate. And we'd like to, when we get done with our next recipient, have them with the board chair and the board behind for another photo. If that's okay. You mind staying up here?
Sure.
Our staff member of the year is Miss Melvine Alexander. Would you mind coming forward, ma'am? Ms. Alexander has served in the role of instructional assistant at Amherst Education Center for the past 9 years and has a total of 25 years' experience in education. Mr. Ernest Penn, administrator of Amherst Education Center, stated Ms. Alexander's positive and uplifting attitude is a tremendous asset to our school and the lives of our students, and she has great passion for making a difference in the students' lives. Her colleagues note characteristics that set Ms. Alexander apart as empathy and understanding, kind and caring personality, willingness to always step up, and her encouragement and compassion for her students. Ms. Alexander, we thank you for your Are we all come up in front with the board chair? Okay. And y'all not staying in the front? You got it right by you. Slide over this way. And Ms. Ashton will be submitted to the state for the State Teacher of the Year.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Wells.
Thank you.
So moving on to 4.01, public comments. And right now, I see we have one person signed up for public comments. So Ms. Kathleen Ayal, are you, okay?
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Ayau, and I am the current English Department Chair at Amherst County High School. I have 37 years of teaching experience. 28 of those have been at Amherst County High School. On behalf of the English Department, I'm sharing concerns over two issues: the opt-in for sexually explicit materials and the recent challenges to numerous books in our high school's library. First, the opt-in policy for sexually explicit material. We believe that this new policy is a distraction and a non-issue. I can say with reasonable confidence that no English teacher is currently or has recently taught any sexually explicit material in the English department. We are trained professionals who choose materials wisely and would like to be respected and trusted as such. We are cognizant of the fact that we are teaching minors, and we do not seek to teach salacious or lewd materials. Second, we believe that the opt-in policy is misguided. If there must be a policy, it should be an opt-out policy, which many of us have voluntarily used throughout the years for material that we deem might be sensitive. An opt-in policy places a huge burden on teachers to send out and collect forms that will end up being lost or not given to parents. Teachers will have to spend time we do not have to try to collect these forms, phone calls, emails, resending forms, tabulating responses. Then we will have to research and gather alternative resources for those who have not returned the forms. This opens up another array of problems. What if we do not have enough alternate resources? What if we are competing with another teacher for those alternative resources? What will we do with students who cannot participate in the discussion the rest of the class is having? Where will they go and who will monitor them? And are you willing to pay us to develop and grade 2 sets of lessons? Because that is the reality of what teachers would have to do. In order to avoid this hassle, some teachers may elect to simply avoid the headache and just teach strictly through the textbook, which is currently a good 20 years old and losing relevance by the minute. Third, the English department finds it dismaying and puzzling that we were never consulted about a policy change that affects us intimately. With our many years of teaching experience, we could have explained the effects this policy change will have on teachers, students, parents, and curriculum. We feel discredited and distrusted by the school board. We request that the school board change this new policy to an opt-out policy. Parents who are concerned about sexually explicit material will be attentive to forms sent home about this issue and will be sure to send them back. Creating plans for 1 or 2 students who have opted out is much more manageable for all concerned than creating plans for 15, 20, 25 students who simply would not return a form. My final concern relates to library book challenges. There are currently 11 books being challenged in our library, and I understand there may be more coming. Let's have faith in our librarians. They are degreed professionals with many years' experience. They do not make decisions in a vacuum. They research titles, read reviews, and follow what other schools are adding to their libraries. They have an obligation to meet the needs and interests of a diverse student population. The review process takes up an enormous amount of time that could be much better spent on truly urgent needs. May I finish? I have like 5 lines.
It's up to the board.
Okay. Closing the learning loss due to COVID, improving student attendance and engagement, which are truly troubling issues, and continuing to ensure school safety. When I think of the pressing needs within our schools, I do not believe that the countless hours it will take my principal and other staff to review these books is worth it. I'm really asking for a reality check here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ayal. Thank you. So that's the only name we had on the list. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Sir? Mhm. Please state your name and address and affiliation with the school.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Toby Braden Johnson, while a resident of Lynchburg. This is my first year on staff with ACHS. And I too would like to address both the opt-in policy and the library policy, as they do go hand in hand on this. And they build off of something that's really troubling and concerning because of one of the things that brought me to ACHS and that Mr. Crawford and I spoke of in my interview here, in the idea of moving ACHS to a program that truly prepares students, as we say, cultivate excellence in every child every day, towards a broader scope of the humanities and wider cultural education and understanding. In that manner, an opt-in program is unnecessary. All parents and guardians have given tacit, if not explicit, approval to the staff and administration of ACPS to determine specific curricula for all courses by enrolling in those programs. To allow so-called concerned adults to remove students from certain part of a planned course of study by choosing not to opt in undermines the educational goals and objectives of that program. Students cannot be assured that all elements of the program are available in alternative models that receive secondary, if not tertiary or worse, attention of an instructor already dealing with numerous lesson plans. ACPS has placed its trust in instructors to craft appropriate and diligent learning programs for students in accordance with VDOE structures and guidelines. To make parts of that program of study optional undermines the validity of ACPS's vision to cultivate excellence in every child every day, because not all students would be participating in those activities. Now, most of the attempts to seeking to remove a text from either the library or course of program due to the presence of a few or far more likely a singular instance that is deemed inappropriate. Thus, we're confronted with a situation seeking to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as the old saying goes. Explicit scenes of sexual violence are often critical moments in narratives that seek to expose the histories of violence and oppression. We could just reference Virginians' recent objections to Toni Morrison's Beloved. Yet these efforts do not seek to parse the books into what is good or what deserves more delicate attention by trained scholars and instructors who are able to discuss the intricacies of these scenes and their implications. Rather, such objections to explicit material call for the removal of the entire work and forbid teachers from discussing such, and no pun intended here, seminal works. Removing valued narratives due to one troubling scene would lead us on a troubling path where classic works would be objected to for similar reasons. And possibly foremost of concern would be any mention of the Bible, which much of Western literature alludes to. It's rife with stories and depictions that when taken in isolation would actually draw ire here. But as noted above, the biblical text taken as a whole is deemed to have serious literary and artistic value, as it's been noted for inclusion in many VOD curriculum descriptions. So too are the other materials chosen for our classes in alliance with or in compliance with video structuring, pacing guides, material, and curriculum. So what I would ask of the board, and these are my recommendations and follow with Ms. Ayau, affirm the faculty input in curriculum decisions, as we have, quite a few years of experience doing this. We respect the faculty expertise. I have 2 recommendations, and it's 2 sentences. May I continue, please?
Please do.
Thank you. Number 2, respect faculty expertise to make these decisions. And 3, please revisit the opt-in policy as well as the language describing these sexually explicit materials. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone else wishing to address the board? Ma'am? Okay.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Cheryl Fales. I am the AEA president of Amherst County. I also work at Amherst County High School and have been serving this community in that position, the teaching position, for at least 20 years. I am here in support, of course, of our English department, our teachers, our administrators, who also worked diligently on trying to draft or create a policy. Right now, I guess it's IIA, that relates to the VDOE Code 22.1-16.8. I understand that you had time constraints and you had to create a policy and put it on the books by January 1st, 2023, which just passed. What I am asking is that we do revisit some of the language in that policy IIA, because we do believe that some of the language may be ambiguous when our community reads it. We understand that code is addressing sexually explicit material. I will reiterate, we do not have any teachers at the high school level that are teaching sexually explicit material or including sexually explicit material in the novels and the books that they are choosing. So again, recommendation is to revisit IIA, look at the language again. We have read the VDOE guidelines as well. We do believe that there's ambiguous language. The other piece of this is we endorse the opt-out policy. The opt-in policy, I think both of your speakers earlier gave good cause to revisit that as well. So what's the difference between opt-in and opt-out? Opt-in, I understand, is specific to sexually explicit material. Opt-out covers every child every day. As you know, most recently we have suffered a loss, and that loss has hit home to me. My voice will probably shake at this point. I am going through a grieving process. My students are going through a grieving process. With opt-out, if we have a book that we're reading that touches on subjects that perhaps families are going through trauma or they've lost a loved one, it's much broader of a policy from our perspective and from our point of view. So that's one of the things that the English teachers shared with me too. We believe that opt-out, again, reaches every child every day. It's not just about sexually explicit. It's about whether or not they're grieving or if they have a religious objecting. So again, I ask you to support our teachers. Between the English department and the history department, we have 318 years of experience. We have 1 PhD. We have a postgraduate candidate. We have 14 master degrees and 5 BAs. So please consider our expertise and revisit this policy with our administration with teacher voice. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to approach the board? Seeing none, we'll move on. 5.01, that's where we are, right? 5.01? Yep.
Yes.
Is that you?
Yes.
Okay.
So under 5.01, we have the appointing of the clerk and deputy clerk on A through G. I believe y'all can pass those all in one motion versus having to vote independently on that. So that'll be my request, if y'all could just approve those as they are versus having to vote independently.
Board, you see the list that's in front of us. Any objection to any of it?
Chair, I move we approve the items in 5.01 as presented.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? None.
All right, thank you. We'll go get sworn in again tomorrow. All right. And then 5.02, representatives and representative and alternate to the Laurel Regional Board.
Okay.
And last year, Ms. Ligon was the representative and Ms. Justice was the alternate.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Priscilla Ligon as the representative for Laurel.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Ligon.
Congratulations. Now you need to have an alternate.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Terry,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Don Justice,
Okay.
alternate.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
You have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
Yeah,
Have a-
Congratulations, Ms. Justice. 5.03 is a delegate for the VSBA.
Ms. Ligon.
Ms. Ligon?
Last year, Ms. Ligon was the representative and Ms. Thompson was the alternate.
Okay. Do I hear any motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Priscilla Ligon.
There, have a motion? You have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none?
All right. Congratulations, Ms. Ligon. Thank you. Now we need an alternate.
And now we need an alternate? anyone make a? Can I do it?
And I'm happy to do it.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Ms. Thompson to be alternate.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
All right.
Nope.
Thank you. Congratulations. 5.04, appoint a representative and alternate to the Central Virginia Governor's School Governing Body. Last year, Mr. Greiser was the representative and Ms. Berg was the alternate.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for Don Justice on the governor's school.
Okay, there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none.
And now we need an alternate.
Look, John? You want it? Okay. You want to do it? Okay. I make a motion that we appoint Mrs. Thompson as the alternate. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none?
All right, thank you. Congratulations. And next, we have appoint a representative and alternate to the Regional STEM Academy. And this past year, Mr. Terry was the representative and Ms. Berg was the alternate.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Erica Rossi, STEM representative.
Second that.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none?
Congratulations, sir. All right. And then we need an alternate.
Now we need an alternate. Okay. I can do it.
Nominate Ginger, can't you?
Since Ms. Berg's not here, you can throw her in the hot seat if you want to.
Let me
I'm
do it.
not, Mr. Chair, I nominate Ms. Berg.
Second.
Is this for the alternate, right, or did you already?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
alternate.
Yeah. Okay.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So moving on to, is that all of them, right? That's
Yes,
all of them.
sir.
Okay. 6.01, agenda items, let's see.
So is this the consent agenda?
Okay,
So
so you need a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Okay. Moving on,
now we're into administrative.
7.01.
All right, Dr. Hoden.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, our first item here is a construction update. This week, we met with CRA to talk about the updated plans about the project. Tomorrow, we're meeting with the cafeteria to discuss that plan and also the hardware. And Mr. Rokes is going to give you the new project schedule for bid, et cetera.
So as Dr. Hoden mentioned, we continue to, or the architect rather, continues to work on the drawings and have our regular meetings to updating us as far as what it's going to look like and some minor tweaks they've made to it. As far as the schedule goes, the bid will go out sometime, hopefully early February. And we'll give them the contractors time to respond back to that. We hope to have a bid opening sometime in the March-April timeframe. And from there, we'll have a contract processing in the April-May timeframe. And then from there, we go to hopefully mobilization sometime in May and June, probably realistically June. And mobilization will mean moving dirt. So from that aspect, it'll be approximately 18 months from there. So we're looking or anticipating somewhere by December of '24 to have the project complete. And again, that will just be strictly the auditorium aspect and the cafeteria in that aspect. It does not include the field house or anything with the stadium at this point. So we're strictly focusing on the main part of the building at this time. Any questions?
Yes, sir, when you say 18 months, is that 18 months to get it completed or 18 months for the shell?
18 months completed from the time we start breaking ground will be complete. And a lot of that is dictated by the ESSER funds as well, and, you know, the grants and stuff that we secured for this.
Okay, thank you.
Weather could also play a factor in that, but we're hoping 18 months is realistic.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Sure, Mr. Rossi.
have we gotten any of our quotes back yet? Are we seeing the inflation factor yet, or
As they
material
explained,
delays?
that will not go out until February. So as we were in our meeting this week with Josh, he informed us that prices have stabilized, is the term that he used. Right.
All right, thank you.
They did feel it would have some competitive, some local contractors would have some very competitive bids, because some of them really want to bid on this project. So we're hoping there'll be some competitive bids in there that they'll want our business, I hope. So maybe get us something to help us out a little bit.
Thank you.
Next item is just a quick reminder that our discipline board will change. So Ms. Thompson, Ms. Ligon, and Ms. Justice will be on that. And I anticipate our first case would likely be Thursday, January 26th, but we will notify you of that. Questions on that? And lastly, the special election was held this past Tuesday at Amherst Elementary, Amelon Elementary, Central Elementary, Elon Elementary, and Temperance Elementary. The voters were only able to access the gym. We did not have any issues reported other than maybe a little bit of traffic during the arrival and dismissal. I think the turnout was pretty low, so we did not have any issues with that.
Thank you, sir.
And then 7.02, you have in front of you the suspension report for December.
Board have any questions for Dr. Hoden?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I actually can't access any of my docs. Can I get some help? Thank you.
Ms. Justice, I have some printed copies of some items, and it's just like the discipline report right now is not visible because it's underneath administrative content. So if you would like, I can give you that copy while I work on a password.
Do you want to move on? Okay.
Okay. All right.
Moving on to 8.01.
So next we have finance and Ms. LeConte.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the school board. Tonight before you is your December financial reports for both the schools and the child nutrition operational budgets. I've provided you the standard reports, the revenue and expenditures, your local revenue, as well as the enrollment. Since I have two items tonight, and the second is an update on the current year revenue, I was going to focus on the expenditure and direct you to the expenditure object code summary. I always like to point out things that may come into question. On page 1, under the bonus, you will see that it's showing a deficit of $596,030. This is the bonuses. It's funded through two different federal sources. It was going to be that pandemic relief bonus payment with any non-SOQ going into CARES 3. Just logistically, for the timing of wanting to get the bonuses to our staff before the holidays, and because most of the time your bonuses are coming out of the operating budget, with the schools and the county having it set up that way, it was more efficient to do it that way, and we are in the process right now of transferring it to the appropriate, each of the two appropriate funding sources. So that will actually come off next month, and you will see it under the CARES item. On page 2, I'm going to always talk about the utilities. I'm going to always talk about the fuel because those are the things that are really impacting our budget this year, and I'm sure will be something we're discussing in the budget process for next year. The electricity. I will want to just point out that we have not changed the purchase order, which is the encumbrance amount, but after getting our January bill, which was for the December, it had gone up 39% over what we were charged in November. And I know there's usage differences. We compared it also to the December of 2021, and it's up 26%. So we're going to get another bill. We're going to adjust that. So while this is what we're showing today, and that's what's in our system, we do anticipate that electricity to go over. We will also look at the water and the heat and do the same thing and just update it. As for the fuel, which is also, it's at the bottom of page 2, we have not adjusted that purchase order either. And currently, that is what is allocated for about 10 more loads of fuel at about $4.20 a gallon. And right now, it's trending lower, but we all know it's been a roller coaster, so we're going to monitor that. So I'm going to pause. Do you have any questions on these reports?
Board? John?
The waste and water services,
Yes, that is.
did you touch that? The negative 181, is that?
This is going to be your water and your trash pickup. And when you pass the budget, it's actually one line item, and it just gets allocated to those 3 areas. And unfortunately, this year, there's really no allocation that's going to cover those. So we're going to address that in the budget when we bring that to you next month.
Anyone else on the board? Okay. Ms.
Okay,
Collins?
so 8.02 is, so we always look forward to December 16th when we get around that area, when we get the new calc tool from the state. It helps us with the budget process for next year. It also provides an update because it's a 2-year budget, it impacts your current year as well as a future year. So with the December 16th calc tool, there was an update to the sales tax and lottery revenue projections. It was also an update based on recent enrollment projections and program participations. And while we're bringing this to you, it is something that we have been monitoring on a monthly basis. It's one of the reasons why the enrollment numbers are put under the finance section, because your enrollment does impact your funding sources. So we want to just point out that at the projection, our budget is built on 3838, and it was updated to be 377110. So it's a reduction of 66.9 students. So we are looking at a revenue shortage reduction of about $522,000. So we did want to bring that to you. It is something we have been monitoring. Our final ADM that our funding is based off is our March 31st ADM, but we don't want to wait till March to come up with a plan. And we have been in those discussions, and we're anticipating your second guess is going to be, your next question is going to be how you plan on covering it. So we looked at our local budget for the maintenance projects, and there was one school that was slated to get painted, and we were proposing to push that off, and that was about $145,000. We still have a second school bus that we may not even be able to get in this year anyway because of the delay, but we would have that as something that we could push off if we need to. With our budget being 83% personnel, we will definitely look at any vacancies or any savings we have in those areas for the remainder. Again, not touching the things that we have said with the bus driver vacancies covering any fuel and the custodial covering any electrical.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I have one question.
Yes.
The money allocated for full-time employees, are those all filled? I don't think they are.
No,
So-
ma'am.
Okay. How much is that amount of money? Do we know?
I mean, it's on your object code summary, you'll see those available balances. And a lot of that is coming from any salary. If someone left and someone came in that made less money, or you had vacancies that haven't been filled. So if you, on the object code page, the second to last column, you'll see available balances. And it's categorized by the object code, which is the 1,000s are your personnel costs, and we have it by board salaries, your administrative, your teachers. So you'll see that there are some savings in that area. We would not look at, when we look at substitutes, it's not encumbered. So we would not really want to spend that because we still have half of the year to go. But the good thing when you look at this report, the administrative teacher salaries, it is encumbered for their contracts. So our current staff is covered. So we will look at that excess, and then we also have to look to see, are we going to be filling those vacancies? Because we don't want to consider this money as something that can cover this revenue shortfall, and then we hire that position. So but we have been watching it. We were hoping that when the calc tool came out, perhaps there would be some enrollment loss funding. That was not in there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, yes, sir.
the allocated funds for the school that's slated for painting, is that one of our regular scheduled maintenance?
Yes, that's in our, we budgeted it for that this year.
Okay,
But looking at, it has not occurred yet, obviously, but looking at where we are right now and the school, we feel we want to hold off on that until we know exactly where we are at the end of the year.
all right, so when we allocate funds for that, we did an estimate, and did we receive an outside contract for that, or?
We haven't gone to bid yet. We have an estimate from the painters, and we use that as our estimate to drive in our budget from last year, the numbers.
Okay.
But we haven't gone to bid. So we just have we have what we anticipate the project costing. That's what we budgeted.
Okay, but that money has not been spent?
No.
And neither has the money for the bus we have not received yet?
No, we have not even issued the purchase order for it. We are planning on issuing that purchase order just because of the delay in timing of getting the buses, but we can always push that off if needed and receive it out of next year's budget.
And that new bus, is that an electric bus, or is that just another bus?
That's a standard bus.
Standard bus to increase to retire another bus?
Correct.
Is that what we're looking at?
Yes, sir.
And will we recoup anything from the sale of that older bus?
We will get some money back from the sale, but it goes through the auction process, and so therefore.
Does it have to go through auction, or?
It would be minimal, maybe $2,000 that we would get back from an auction of an older bus.
And I was just wondering more creative ways of painting a school, and if maybe a community outreach and volunteers, and we could save money by having volunteers, or instead of hiring a painting crew, possibly if the maintenance department would supervise a temp staff to come in and paint, might be more cost effective in the long run. Just more creative ways, and we
Yes,
could
sir.
save. I've been in a few of the schools, and some of them really need some paint. And it can uplift spirits, believe it or not. And
Yes, sir.
I really don't want to try to postpone it anymore.
Okay.
So maybe look at some more creative ways of trying to get some paint on the walls.
Okay.
Maybe some color on the walls.
Okay. Anyone else on the board? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Conich. Moving on to 9.01.
Dr. Norman, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the board. The first thing I'd like to allow to happen tonight is Mr. Maddox, but if I can give you a little bit of some background on this. About 6 years ago, I believe, I stole Mr. Maddox from Dr. Wells from the high school and brought him up to the school board office because we needed to focus on future-ready students, kids who may wanted to do an associate track, may wanted to get their hands wet on multiple areas to find out what they wanted to do in life, weren't ready to make a decision. And he oversaw the CTE program at the high school, but based on legislation, CTE then was pushed down all the way to the elementary school, so we needed a division person. And the ideas that he has brought to the table in regards to what we do for our students, K through 12, for career and technical education has been phenomenal. And so thank you for that, Mr. Maddox. The bus that he's going to talk to you about came out of that initial meeting where I said, yeah, I really need you at the school board office to oversee the whole program. And he says, well, I got an idea. And so Mr. Maddox's idea is coming to fruition after 6 years, and I certainly think it's going to be an excellent idea. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Maddox so he can explain to you this wonderful, wonderful project that he's got going.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Norman. I hope you all got a chance to see the bus outside. We just got it back from Sunny Merriman today with the outside paint, with the wrap and the Amherst Express for career awareness. So, what we're hoping, we had some young folks up here tonight, and all of the different modules and the different equipment that we're going to have on the bus. You could see the excitement, and that's what we hope to do with the bus as we take it out to our elementary schools, is to get the students excited about something and start talking about careers, and then start working with their parents and get them excited about things. And it was really great tonight when we had the folks in there, and they were just, oh, look at this, see, this is wonderful. And that's and that's what we want to do with the bus. That's the reaction, build excitement. We're going to have not only the equipment that you see out here tonight, which is the robots and the virtual welding, and of course the 3D Z-Space, but we're also going to have some CNC machines on the bus. We have the drones that we're going to have on the bus. We have some electrical training and some circuits that we're going to put on the bus for students to gain access to running electrical wires and things like that. So I can only see the potential and some of the things growing. And we're trying to concentrate on the areas that our workforce needs right here in our local manufacturing, local construction, and of course, health sciences. So we're excited and just look forward to getting the bus. We're starting on the inside now, so we're going to get that rolling so we can actually take it out to our elementary schools, and it'll be a mobile lab available to set for those schools, so teachers will sign up and bring their students. But again, we're excited. So it's taken a while.
Any questions regarding it?
Board, you got any questions?
It's a
Mr.
great-
Maddox, I do have to say you brought the best toys tonight, so that was
Thank
great.
you.
I'd like to throw back to the early 90s Amherst football team with the
right.
Express thing.
Just a little bit.
Get on the Express,
That's right.
the Career Express.
Hear the train whistles at the game.
We're getting a whistle, just saying. And also, we want to thank the Education Foundation for providing some grant money for this as well, and they were able to help support some of the cost.
Ms. Thompson?
Just a quick follow-up question. I loved the display tonight and all of the, I think you called them toys, but I know that they're really not toys. You mentioned that you would be doing the bus on the Elementary Futures Night. Can you remind me on what, is that March, or are there specific dates?
Ms. Smith?
First?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could
We
just
can
send them
email
to
that
us
out
then.
to you.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Yeah, each elementary school will have their own night. We'll send those out and
Okay,
get them
that'd
to
be
you.
great, because I think it's just a step in the right direction.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next on the agenda, I'd like to give you an update in regards to our accreditation and academic review and monitoring process. And the first thing I'd want to say wholeheartedly is how proud I am of our instructional staff, our administrators, and our teachers. The work that they have put in right now to date has been unprecedented. The things that we have asked people to do, they have willingly put forth the effort to make any numerous changes that would impact kids. And the moment that you say, here's the benefits that's going to happen with the children in our division, it's an instant, yes, what do you need me to do? We've had tons of teachers just have ideas and contact us and really put forth an effort into making sure that we are closing the learning gaps making up for learning loss, and really getting on a path of where we need to be, not just with the state, but what's in the best interest of children in Amherst County. And I just want to say a big thank you to all of those that have been involved in it. It's been an amazing process that we've done. We are not finished yet. We have a lot to do, but I'm required to give the board an update in regards to our academic review and monitoring process, and I've asked my staff to help me with this. But we have a PowerPoint presentation. And you can go to the second slide. I'd like to go ahead and discuss with you what is in board docs, just so you have a knowledge of what is available to you. The first thing is a actual academic review at a glance. It's a one-pager that tells you from the state exactly what we're required to do and exactly why we're required to do it. So it's very specific. That's in there for you just to it's the who, what, when, where, and why we do what we do. And that's for you to take a look at. There's also a memo that is available that gives specific information that we're going to talk about tonight, and some very school-specific information regarding each academic review and monitoring, along with that is available to the public. Along with that, in the administrative content, you have, as board members, all of the reports that are required to go to the state and that we were required to fill out for each of the schools. There is very specific personnel, teacher, lessons, all types of information in that document that is confidential. We have to keep that confidential, so you have that available to you as a board member for you to review. If you have any questions in regards to that, please make sure, if it's teacher-specific or anything like that, that you keep Mr. Gallagher in the loop, because that is a personnel matter that you would have to go through him in regards to that. So that's information that you have in there. You also have this PowerPoint that gives you all the information that we're going to provide to you tonight. The next slide is just a reminder. We brought to you in September all of the information that we were provided from the state in regards to the accreditation for each school in the division. Then we provided you information on what was required for each school. And this is the level of status that we have for each of the schools that are under academic review and monitoring, and what their designation is. And so for each of those 5 schools that we have, whether or not we went in and did a full academic review, whether we did a monitoring, or whether we had to do both. And that's just for you to refer to in regards to the content based on each school and what that looks like for achievement gaps. Okay. The next slide is, again, just a reminder. We gave you a lot of information in September, and I don't expect you to remember it all. So we're just trying to lay some foundational stuff for you. This is where we actually are at the beginning of the school year, and I wanted to remind you that if we used current year, okay, so right now we have schools accredited, all of our schools are accredited, but there are different varying levels. But if we used current information or current scores, none of our schools would have met the benchmarks for accreditation based on where we dropped during the pandemic. And so the process that we are required to use for our specific struggling schools that have already been identified from the state, we are using that with all of our schools just to make sure everyone has the information. What is good for one group of students at one school is good for another group of students at another school. And we wanted to make sure that administrators in every building gets the information from the state, that they have the same process, maybe not as intense, trust me, not as intense, but the same process, so they get all of the tools, all of the professional development, all of the instructional materials and everything. We provide that to them in the principals meeting each month. We're required to go through training with our administrators of those 5 schools, but we give the training to all of our administrators. And we follow up with our assistant principals at their quarterly assistant principals meeting. The next slide is the required actions that we provided to you in September as to what we were required to do for the Virginia Department of Education to meet their stipulations. We have accomplished all of them except for 3, and we are in the process of those 3. 2 are ongoing. They started at the beginning of the year. Actually, they started in July, and they will go all the way through to the end of the year when Dr. Wells signs off on all of this to the state. And then there's one at the very end where we as a division have to have a Office of School Quality review that we must go through at the end. We've already done our fall review as a division where they've met with Dr. Wells and myself and members of the staff and gave us recommendations. And then we will do that again at the very end of the year. Okay. Any questions so far on just the background information of what led us to where we are? Okay. I would like to turn it over to Ms. Robin Wheeler, who oversees our school improvement process and Title I for our schools, and she's going to talk to you about the mechanism that we use.
Thank you. So just as we have a division comprehensive school improvement plan, we also have school-specific plans. And so the comprehensive needs assessment is the first step that we use division-wide in establishing those plans. So each school, with the support of their school leadership team, went through a comprehensive needs assessment to really take a deep dive into all of the data sources that they have: SOL assessments, PALS assessments, attendance data, discipline data, graduation rates, anything that you could think of, to really determine what the areas of support or where those areas of support were. And that information then was put into the state-required comprehensive school improvement plan. And so the state of Virginia requires that schools have this improvement plan as the mechanism to kind of track progress and establish those goals. That CSIP was developed after the CNA with the leadership team. That plan is developed to last multiple years. We don't expect that we put a goal in place and that we automatically meet that goal. It definitely is a progress, and so we monitor those goals that we put in place over those years. And again, that CSIP is developed based on what that CNA has told us. That CSIP also includes the findings from the academic review that Ms. Cecil will talk to you a little bit later about. We ask that leadership teams, through their CNA process, establish goals, but then through the academic review process, go back and meet some of the recommendations that the team has provided as well. The CSIP process also includes a rubric that we use at the division level to support administrators and leadership teams in evaluating the comprehensive school improvement plan, looking at those goals, looking at the steps that are put in place, and then help to monitor that again through the leadership team and at the division level, making revisions as needed, monitoring progress, collecting data, and that kind of thing. So I'll talk a little bit more on the next slide about the comprehensive needs assessment. As I said, it really does help for the administrator and the school leadership team to go through a systematic review process, looking at that data, looking at trends over the last 3 years even with some of that data, to really help prioritize and set a focus in that CSIP, and really lays the foundation for a continuous improvement cycle, because we know that improvement is ongoing and we can't meet it in that first fell swoop. The next slide really shows an example of what the comprehensive school improvement plan looks like. This was the template used by all of our schools when they created their CSIPs. At the top, there is a SMART goal for the overall focus area, and that is measurable. It is time-bound. As I mentioned, typically we did them for a 2-year, some moving as far as 3 years as far as their goals. And then the CSIP plan template also asks that leadership teams think about essential actions, evidence-based strategies that the team can put into place, that they can monitor, and then really prioritize, almost creating a timeline for how those steps will be taken in order to meet that goal. And again, just outlining evidence, as Ms. Cecil will talk about through the academic review, administrators are collecting evidence to show the progress of these action steps that they're putting into place to make sure that they're going to go back and meet that SMART goal that they've set up. We started this process on the next slide with an opportunity to meet with the Office of School Quality. and their school improvement team, who really worked with the division to look at the data that we had, offers some commendations as well as some recommendations of what we at the division level needed to do in order to support our schools to go through this improvement process. And as you can see on the slide, the majority of the action steps provided to us from the OSQ, Office of School Quality, were specific to supporting alignment of that taught, tested, and written curriculum. So Ms. Cecil is now going to talk to you about the monitoring progress that we used here in the division.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. So I'm actually going to skip to the next slide first, and I'll come back, I promise. So after the CNA is developed and the development of the CSIP, schools and the division is required to monitor for implementation and impact. And so evidence that supports the processes that are outlined in the CSIP, they're continuously reviewed and evaluated to determine if those processes have been supporting or not supporting student outcomes. Then, as Ms. Wheeler stated, CSIPs are revised and updated as necessary. And then back to the following slide. The division is also required to conduct division academic reviews for schools with level 2 school quality indicators in English and math or science, as well as any schools with any level 3 school quality indicators. And those were the schools that Dr. Norman shared at the beginning of the presentation. And so in order to complete this process, a division academic review team is and has been established, and the ACPS members of this team includes our assistant superintendent, our chief student service officer, our supervisor of literacy, our supervisor of math and science, the school building principal and their division liaison, and division level representatives in the area of English language learners and counseling. And just as a reminder, each school is assigned a school division liaison, and this liaison, they do attend leadership and faculty meetings to support the ongoing process of the CSIP and to monitor the actions and strategies that are outlined in there. And so the monitoring process, this slide just gives you some specific checkpoints for CSIP monitoring and academic review. And as we previously talked about, we did conduct CSIP reviews in the fall to ensure that those key components and processes were noted in there as identified from their CNA or their comprehensive needs assessment. And so by conducting division instructional rounds, the division team was able to collect some baseline information regarding instructional alignment and student engagement. And they're able to use that data to support and then evaluate the implementation and impact of those fall CSIP goals. So in the winter division-led reviews, we used some specific components provided by the VDOE academic toolkit, which Mr. Neighbors is going to speak with you about. And these tools include a set of criteria that represent best practices. And so the academic team then reviews this evidence and identifies areas of strengths or areas for improvement, and then these essential actions are then included in the comprehensive plan and updated. And so now I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Neighbors, who will dig a little deeper.
Thank you, Ms. Cecil, and good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So what does the academic review process look like? What are we using? There are two tools that are required by the state for all schools for which we have to conduct an academic review or academic monitoring. And what we have up here for you is an example of those. It's also the packet that you've been provided that Dr. Norman spoke about earlier, specific to each school for which they were completed, but just giving you a visual of how these are set up and what the state has given to us to look at. It does provide some examples, so thinking about what is our evidence going to be, what are we actually pulling and looking at to make sure we're making the progress, we're meeting the criteria set forward by the state. It's always helpful to have what some of those examples are. The body of the document itself takes you through not just the category, but also very specific criteria set forward by the state. What does it mean to be moving towards that full implementation, to be where we need to be in these particular categories that the state has identified? Within that evidence column, we're actually pulling physical documentation. So quite literally, documents, presentations that have been made to the staff, in some situations, purchase orders about technology that's been purchased for the school, anything that we can pull that's existing that gives evidence that we are doing these things, we're meeting this criteria set forward by the state. We do provide a rating for each criteria area, and there's a definition, kind of outline of what that rating looks like there at the top. And then we have the ability to comment, so provide some narrative to that evidence. All these documents that are listed here and hyperlinked in the document, what does that actually mean? What is the school doing to meet this criteria that's been set forward by the state? It's a simplistic looking document, and even when you're looking at what we have there in the very simple way that we've listed out that evidence, it looks like a very simple piece. It represents a tremendous amount of work on the part of staff in buildings, the administration in buildings, and it is amazing and commendable going through this process how much evidence there is of all of the things that the state expects us to do at each of these schools. So I did feel like that was worth repeating. A commendation there for staff and administration. There's just a tremendous amount of work going on in each school, and it's amazing to see the evidence of all the things that are done for our students on a day-to-day basis. What we wanted to do for you is drill down even a little bit further and give you a snapshot of our most comprehensive academic review that we conducted at Amherst County High School. You will notice there are 6 snapshots on this slide because we went well beyond the required 2 and had to complete all 6 for Amherst County High School. Mr. Crawford was kind enough to give us an entire day of his time. Staff from the division, as well as staff there at Amherst County High School, were in and out of the meeting over the course of the day. It was so intense that I actually fell out of my chair at one point, so it was really quite a serious process that we were engaged with there. A lot of the evidence that we were pulling from, again, Ms. Cecil mentioned this earlier, based on those instructional rounds that were conducted and evidence that's been created and collected over the course of the school year by staff and administration. The 6 tools are listed there, and they really touch on every single aspect of instruction and operations of the school building there at the high school. Because there is so much that goes into what that looks like for those high school age students, the different considerations there. It's why there are so many tools to utilize. But again, even with that level of work, the level of evidence that was able to be gathered, that Mr. Crawford was able to bring forward, that his staff have completed this year, was staggering for me. It was quite impressive to be a part of that process. From this and completing these various tools, we were able to identify some common themes and strands, and you see those essential actions listed there. Those are the components where we felt like these are pieces that can be implemented or put into that CSIP with the blessing and coordination of the leadership team there at the high school to ensure that we are still moving forward and meeting that criteria set forward by the state. So as we're looking at that level of implementation, how we rated these various criteria within these categories and tools provided, identifying where we can provide support from a division level, what can we do there at the school to perhaps streamline process, add support to be able to meet that criteria in a more comprehensive manner. We don't want you to just hear from us this evening. We also wanted to give Mr. Crawford an opportunity to speak to the process because he was so heavily involved with that. So I wanted to invite him up to provide some of his own reflections on the process and the work that he's done with his leadership team.
All right, so there's a quiz at the end of this, so you need to make sure that you know all of this stuff. So, I joke, but that's how I felt this entire time. Honestly, it was, it's my first year at the high school, going through this entire process. Been through school improvement plans with Temperance Elementary School the last couple years. Nothing quite like this, and I can say it was helpful. It was grueling. It was long. It was very informative, though. And the things that we took away from this process have gone into our school improvement plan. The things that we've taken away from this process has helped us reflect on the practices that we do have. You all probably know I was a coach for a long time. At the end of every practice, at the end of every game, I like to be reflective. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? What can we do better tomorrow? That's how I approached this process. It was a lot easier with our senior staff and our administrative team up here and our instructional team, because if I didn't have them, I probably would have been lost. Just looking at these documents, not completely understanding exactly what I was getting into in September when we started the process. We had a meeting up here with the Office of School Quality, and I think all of the principals at the end of that meeting, we all looked at each other like, oh, what are we going to do? But our instructional team and our senior staff made it so much easier for us. We have a checklist that has been created for us that we go through the process of each and everything that we need to make sure that we do. When we met, they came in, they were prepared. They gave us a heads up on what we needed to bring. We had data that was presented. The process was a lot easier because of them. But the process was really hard and it was really long. The good thing is that it was so informative, and we always like to talk about using data to drive our decisions, and we did that. This is a process that allowed us to do that. We took that data from the entire process. We made changes to our school improvement plan. The key here is to remember that our school improvement plan it's a living document, and it's a process that is going to take a couple years to accomplish. This is not a document that we expect everything on here to be completed at the end of the year. It's a multiple year process. And knowing that allowed our teachers to understand that, yeah, we got a lot that we need to do, but we can take a step back and breathe because we just need to take it one chunk at a time. This process allowed us to make those changes. And the key here is this, that yes, we have certain areas of our instruction that we need to look at, that we can improve. We have certain areas where we would be a level 2 or a level 3, but it's not just about those areas for us. It's not just about math. It's not just about science. I've said it at multiple faculty meetings this year. I've talked about it at PLC meetings or department meetings and everything else that, you know, our CTE department is incredibly important. Our health and PE department is incredibly important. World languages, fine arts, they're all important. Now, are they determining our status as far as accreditation, like math or English or anything like that? It might not be to that level, but you know what does? Our graduation rate. And sometimes those students that come to school because they want to be welders, or they come to school because they play a sport and they want to be eligible to play that sport, they get to that graduation line and they're willing to do all of these other things. So our teachers know that. They've taken this data, they've run with it. There's been zero pushback. You know, so it's been a great process for me to be able to reflect, to see the things that we can do better, to see the things that we need to make a few tweaks here and there, but to really reflect on the good things, the things where we can improve. And honestly, it's about every child every day, right? That's what we're about. And going through this process helps us to remember that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Again, publicly just wanted to commend Mr. Crawford on his leadership as a part of this process. And again, just restate the incredible work everyone at the high school is doing. It really does give you that picture going through these documents, how much is done each day for the students at Amherst County High School. And I just wanted to repeat that again, felt that was worth that. One more piece for me, I wanted to give the board a picture of next steps. As Dr. Norman mentioned, we are not done yet. Working through, we will have CSIP school reviews with each administrator in February. Obviously, a significant component of that process is collaborating, coordinating with them, and also helping them prepare for what's going to be coming down the road in regards to presentations to the state of that data. We're going to be conducting our final instructional rounds with the team in schools in March. Continued support for administrators on implementing those essential actions that we talked about earlier that have come out of this academic review process. Provide support to classroom teachers as needed and really getting down to the individual classroom level at schools to make sure we're providing all supports that we can. We will have mid-year data to review, again, using that as another data point for the CSIP to ensure that we are on the right track at each school, and as I mentioned before, beginning those preparations for our end-of-year presentation and the division monitoring from VDOE. There are also individual steps that identified schools are taking, which we have included there. Leadership teams obviously are heavily involved, an important part of that CSIP process and review process, making sure that continues to reflect not just essential actions, but current data, and they're continuing to monitor that throughout the process. And again, I won't read all those on the right side there, but a lot of steps still being taken, not just from the division level, but each individual school as well, to ensure that we're reflecting all of the good work we're doing. We're staying on track with the goals that each school has set out for themselves. I believe I'm turning it back over to Dr. Norman to close out our part.
Yes, and I plan on paying Mr. Crawford later. Thank you very much, Mr. Crawford, for that. The last slide, I'd like to just reiterate the process that we use is an intense process, but there are benchmarks along the way that Dr. Wells, as our superintendent, must meet in order for him to remain a superintendent. Sorry about that, Dr. Wells. So we're meeting our first deadline right now, and tomorrow morning, all of the components that are up on board docs for you to review, we will be submitting on his behalf to the state, where he has signed on the dotted line saying that we have accomplished our first big, huge task, and I am thrilled with that. The second one, of course, is our spring monitoring, where we'll have to go through this again, not as detailed as we have done with our academic reviews, but there is still monitoring that has to take place, and eventually he will have to sign off on all of that. The end of the year are those school reviews. We are actually starting those with all of our schools. Those that are identified and those that are not identified, and we'll go through that process starting in February, and that'll run through the end of the year when we get their data back from the end-of-year assessments and the end-of-year PALS assessments and all of the things that they're going to be doing to kind of take a look at, okay, this is a 2-year plan that we asked them to write on their CSIP. What do we need to do over the summer, get ready for the school year, and then push into next year? So it's a time-consuming process, but it's one that I think we are well prepared, and I cannot tell you again how impressed I've been with the staff of Amherst County Public Schools. It has been phenomenal. I do not want to leave out our administrators. My staff here, we can talk all day long about school improvement, but when the rubber meets the road, it is the building principal who is the instructional leader for that school, and I do not want to leave them out. So if I would ask, if as an administrator, if you would like to comment or to discuss your I know we gave Mr. Crawford because we used him as the guinea pig, but I do want to open it up to any of our administrators here who have gone through that process and just kind of tell what has been going on in your school and how that has happened. Now would be the time. Thank you, Mr. White.
Well, when I found out Crawford got paid for his speeches, I figured I'd come up here and see if I could get paid too as well.
Yeah, okay.
You know, this is only the third time that I've been up at this podium, so I usually sit back and listen a whole lot. When I was announced as Manellison principal, I came up here, and the last time was when I came up here begging and pleading for another week to get the schedule ready for the high school when COVID kept blowing it up over and over and over again. So, and you gave me that week, so I appreciate that. I'm not asking for a week here, maybe some snow days, but I did want to come up here and just, again, echo everything that Mr. Crawford had said. This is not my first rodeo with academic review. I participated in it as an interim principal at a neighboring school. And I got to tell you, when I was there, and I won't mention that name, it felt like it was me versus the VDOE. That was that kind of sense. I remember sitting in a room alone with them, basically with nobody else from my staff there, and talk about very intimidating for a interim principal again. So just kudos to the entire instructional team. They've been all over our building, running through schools, doing observations, sitting down, the liaisons, my liaisons. All right, and it's been a lot of, I don't want to say heated, but a lot of good conversations in there, going back and forth and figuring out, okay, here's what the VDOE's telling us we got to do, the criteria, and I feel like they have done a great job, and our administration staff and my assistant principal too as well, and my dean of students of figuring out, okay, we got this chunk, we got this bear of what we got going on. How do we put it in an effort of what's going to be best for the kids and what's not going to break the backs of the teachers? And that's kind of the mindset that we've had, and I appreciate them taking that mindset into it. It's not you gotta, it's let's figure out how we can do it. And our teachers have responded greatly with that. They're doing a great job with it. We get feedback all the time from our leadership meetings, from our faculty meetings. This document is up and it's living. They go through and check to make sure, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. But it doesn't feel like it's so much pressure that we can't do it. And that's great, especially for a first-year principal, because there are a lot of other things that I'm learning too as well. So again, just want to echo everything that Mr. Crawford said, and thanks to all you folks. Have a great night.
Sir.
Any?
Good evening. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but I do want to extend appreciation to the Amherst County Public Schools team. This has been a process and it is a living document, but to try to take all this on as an individual, it's not possible. And I shared a story about my liaison, Miss Smith. When I was first told that she would be assigned to Amherst Middle School, I was like, okay, that's good. We have a liaison. But today and going through this process, I could hug her every day. She's just been such a huge part of this and been so helpful. And Dr. Norman and Dr. Wells and the staff here at the central office. And I'm very fortunate also because I have an amazing assistant principal and guidance counselor, and amazing Amherst Middle School team that helps us along with this. So again, it keeps us focused on the most important thing, the reason why we're here, and that's our students and their growth and their accomplishment. So again, just want to say thank you, and it has, and it will continue to be a process and a lot of work, but doing it for our students, it's all worth it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Anyone else? Okay. I would like to turn it over to Dr. Wells to wrap it up and just kind of give him a chance for input. Dr. Wells?
Thank you, Dr. Norman. First, I want to start by thanking Dr. Norman and her staff and all our school administrators and teachers in the buildings for all the work that has gone into this. I was told, I can't go into buildings these days because they're there doing their observations, things like that, and I have to stay away. And so I was trying to get some of my stuff in too, and I couldn't go there the same day. So there's a lot going on because we all want to get into the schools and get things where we need to be. But just understand that this is a very intense process. It's not. There's a lot goes into this, and our staff really puts a lot of work and effort into this. It has and will continue to do so. Again, it's not just the teachers with the lesson plans, it's our building administrators and the amount of work that goes into it. It's Dr. Norman's staff, the amount of work that goes into it, because they're in every school. So I just want to thank them for what they're doing. Our improvement, we will improve this year. We're going to have growth this year. But we're looking at a 3 to 5 year process to really be where we really want to be and where we intend on being. So I think you'll see growth this year, but every year after that, you should see exponential growth, and it continues to develop as we work through this process. So just understand that, yes, we will, and we are improving, we are getting better, but this is the same takes a long time to turn around an aircraft carrier. But we also have to really understand that this is a process, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take us a couple of years to get where we need to be, but we are going in that direction. Currently, the VDOE has not solidified how schools will be accredited for 23-24. Excuse me. So we don't know how they're going to use growth assessment scores. We don't know how they're going to look at chronic absenteeism as a baseline, college and career civic readiness benchmark. So all those things are still up in the air. We haven't gotten it all from the DOE yet. And then we also have to look at the impact of student attendance and academic performance. We know kids learn best in school in front of their teacher, and we really need them to understand they need to be in school if they're going to get that education that they need. Our accreditation is based on it, and we need to keep reiterating the fact that, it doesn't matter if they have a note or not. If they're excused, they're still absent from school. So accreditation from the state perspective does not care if they have a note, if they went to the doctor or not. If they miss school, they miss school, and they can't miss more than 17 days of the year without being considered chronically absent. So we need to make sure our parents continue to understand that. We are continuing to reiterate that. I do think sometimes they get confused on the fact that, well, if I bring a note in because they were sick, yes, that does excuse their absence, but the state does not care about that as far as the accreditation is concerned. So we need to continue to educate our families on that as well. But again, the main thing here is that I do want to thank everyone for the work they have done to get us where we are, and we will continue to get better. So thank you.
As you go through the documents that you have on board docs, there is a packet for each school that gives you everything. And if you have any questions in regards to it, of course, please, you can ask whatever questions you want to. Now we'll open it up to you to ask questions of any of us or the administrators in regards to the process. But if you have questions specific to a school, I'll be more than happy to answer those. You can email me, call me, or you can talk directly to an administrator. Okay?
Okay.
And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you, Dr. Norman. Board, do you have any questions? Okay. Dr. Norman, I would like to say thank you to you and your staff. It takes a village. I'd hate to see any of our principals have to go through all this on their own, and I think they feel the same way. So it's great to see the support that they've gotten, and it's a process. It's not something we're going to flip a switch and make it happen. So I'd like also to reiterate what Dr. Wells said about, the absenteeism. To any of the parents who are listening, a trip to the beach because you've signed off for it just doesn't count. So just make sure that we got the kids in school. We learned from COVID, we need to be in school. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Let's see, moving on. Is it 10.01?
Yes. Human Resources, Mr. Gallagher.
So, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, good evening. So I have a few items for you this evening. The first one is our vacancy report. So if you want to take a look at that, I've provided that to you, and I'll take any questions that you may have regarding where we currently are.
Board, any questions? Okay. Okay, just making sure.
We good?
No, sir. Yeah,
All right, thank you. The second item is not something that you have in front of you. Just wanted to review a little bit about the secondary new teacher forum that we held on January 2nd. That was just coming back from break. I gave you some feedback on the elementary new teacher forums that we hold. I've told you before that I love this opportunity to get to discuss with our new teachers and get feedback from them from what's working and what's not. It's not always just the positive and the glows, but sometimes it's some of the needs that they have. And ultimately, I share all of this information, not only with senior staff and the data, but with building principals that will be going out to them as well, so we know where we can improve. And as it relates to any of the preparation and orientation processes for new teachers, we work to make sure we improve those before those happen again in August. So some of the positives from our secondary teachers, new teachers, were the new teacher orientation process itself, the time in classrooms, especially the bus tour, which is always something that typically gets remarked upon. Mentors and veteran teacher support that's provided during that process. Effective communication from building and division level was pretty unanimous, and they did actually specifically note Dr. Wells' newsletters to be very helpful also. Building relationships with students and seeing the progress that they're making throughout the year is a positive that they remarked on, and the division level supports and specialists. There are also challenges, and some of the biggest challenges are ones that we're familiar with and we've heard, and the lack of substitutes continues to be one of those, because then it's difficult to have classes covered and not have to jump in and support others there. But and student discipline, which we continue to work on, and I think that's not just common to us, but it continues to be one of the concerns, especially for new teachers coming into the division, and how to support that. Some of the suggestions that I found helpful, maybe differentiating new teacher orientation based on levels of experience. So maybe they're new they may not be new to the profession, but they are new to Amherst, so maybe they don't necessarily have to participate in all the activities and days that we have for new teacher orientation, for example, to differentiate that. Some systems to better monitor student laptops maybe was one of the issues that came up. Resource provision and training for late hires. There were a few people that got in, maybe missed a lot of new teacher orientation. Post that information for them, but maybe we need to make sure that we have opportunities to meet with them and actually walk through that so they have a better understanding of those things. And some additional resources perhaps to support lessons and unit development for new teachers coming in. And those are some of the reflections I had from that, but certainly would take any questions that you might have in that regard.
Board?
Okay?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Next, you have a memo. We are proposing our calendar for the 23-24 school year. I kind of talked about that in December and walked through the process that we went through in proposing several drafts, getting feedback and respecting that feedback among our committee, and then coming up with kind of a compromise calendar to try to meet all the hopes and desires and needs, not only for the children, but for the staff and faculty as well. So the calendar that you do have in front of you represents what we have come to propose as our calendar moving into that school year. It is for your first review this evening, but also if you've had enough time to reflect on that, and again, we've had that in front of you, some of the information about that in December. I've outlined in my memo some of the factors that went into the development. We did survey individuals. December 6th, that survey went out regarding this particular calendar, and overwhelming positive responses to this calendar from our staff. Almost every response was positive and affirmative. There were some comments. The biggest comments of desire with this calendar may have been wishing that we had January 2nd coming back as a teacher work day. It's a Tuesday coming back from break, so you have 2 weeks plus a day on January 1st. But it is always nice to have that transition, but unfortunately, it's also tough to come by when you're trying to make the other adjustments to make sure we're out at the end of May. It does provide that end in May, which is a nice option. It does provide for the full winter break, and it also does provide with some of the breaks that are necessary, I think, to prevent some of those long periods in between where we didn't have breaks before. So I would like you to review that, and it is your discretion as to whether you are at a point where you're familiar enough to vote on that, or you can consider it for first review and come back in February. And if you have any kind of direction for me regarding your reflections, I'm happy to take that as well.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
move that we approve the 23-24 school calendar as presented.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much. I appreciate that. The last thing that I have this evening, I believe this is the last thing, yes it is a memo regarding our recruiting calendar. I've talked about the recruiting calendar. I've talked about some of the universities that we've added to that and attempted to go to. We always look for a diverse group of universities that have effective teacher preparation programs. So what you have in front of you is the list of those that we've already registered for. And anywhere you see TBD means they have not yet established their date for an education career fair. And some of those I have found recently may not even do that. For example, Hampton, I don't know that they're actually going to conduct one of those. So we will go to the ones that we're able to. Since this document was provided to you on Friday, we've actually registered for Longwood, which is 3/17/23, and for North Carolina A&T, one of our largest historically black colleges in the United States, for February 15th of 23. So we've added a few to those. And also worthy of note is our own Education Career Fair, which again is on February 25th. That's a Saturday. We are doing that in two parts, so there's going to be an in-person portion to that from 9 o'clock till 11:30. We'll be here. We'll also have a support staff version of that in the supervisors conference room down the hall on the other side of the building to promote hiring bus drivers, custodial support, instructional assistants, and so forth, which has been productive. We look forward to that. We're also going to hold a virtual aspect as well beginning at 12. That'll be 12 to 2. That has been very beneficial for us in the past. That's why I don't want to let that go. I'd love to have an in-person career fair, but we have really gotten good results and yielded a lot of good teachers from our virtual fairs in the past as well. We've even gotten them from out of state in that manner. So as you know, we absolutely need to put that net out as widely as possible. So that will be a full day. I've asked our instructional supervisors and principals to save that date, so we will all be here on the 25th of February and hopefully acquire some amazing new talent for the following year. So I'll take any questions you might have regarding that memo.
Okay. Board? Okay. Think that. Yeah, sure.
Chairman, thank you. On the survey that was done September 6th, what percentage of respondents did we have?
What percent? We had, I don't have that in front of me. I'm going to say we had about 40%, it was the 400-something mark as far as respondents. So out of about 715
Great,
employees.
thank
So
you.
that's actually a reasonably decent number compared to some surveys, and very, very favorable. And so overwhelming in the support. I think the adjustments made between the two calendars really met the needs of most everybody, for the most part. Can't have everything, but
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Anyone else on the board? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you all very much.
So next we have information from our student representatives.
Got a mic. Callie.
He probably wore the batteries out of it.
Good afternoon. I'm going to start by saying we're super excited to be back in school. This week ends the first semester for us, so that's super exciting, but also sad considering graduation's coming up. This week we are still having Manelson Middle School and Amherst Middle School come to the high school for 8th grade tours, and I was actually a tour guide, and I will be a tour guide tomorrow, so that's been super fun and exciting. Getting to see the new faces that'll be in the building for next year and just getting to show them around, answer questions. But yeah, that's all I had to say. I'm just excited to be back in school.
Hi, my name is Evan Fink, and overall, it's been a short time in school-wise. There's been a lot of break time between our last meeting, but a few things have happened. VMI made a trip, I know, Wednesday, and it was really cool to see them because they brought some alumni, which made it very interesting. And I don't really know how it works, but it'd be very intriguing to see that happen more often, including, you know, seeing the people who went to college who are doing well now really inspires the students today to do better. And another thing I would like to note on is I'm a CVCC ambassador at the community college, and they often do tours. Like, for example, we did a Rustburg High School tour about a month and a half ago, and it was really successful, and I got a lot of people interested in going there, and there's a lot of good opportunities and trades and mechatronics and HVAC, and I would just like to note that that's very important, and I think that could be looked into a little bit more and the opportunities there. But other than that, I mean, school's going pretty well. It started back up. I know track and basketball had their team pictures taken today, so yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Comments from the board? Okay. Hearing none, move forward.
All right.
12.01.
I will try to talk as best I can. If I lose my voice or it cracks up, please bear with me. So I wanted to start with the overview of the governor's proposed budget. We're going to get approximately $1.2 million more in proposed budget than we got this past year. However, we're also looking at some areas areas where we have concern about. We have to pay a 1%. We're under the governor's budget. There's a 1% bonus for all staff. That's the staff. That just covers SOQ staff. That does not cover the other 300 and some staff members. So that has to come from local dollars. A 5% pay bonus is in there. Again, that just covers the SOQ funded staff, not the other staff that are not SOQ funded, which is additional funding we have to come up with from local dollars. So that's going to cause us to be looking seriously at our budget moving forward and what we need to do coming forward out of this. We're waiting on the House version and the Senate version to see what that looks like. And once we get that, then we'll have a worst case scenario and a best case scenario, and maybe the middle ground might be where we end up. We don't know. But as soon as we get those, when they go into sessions and start developing their budgets, we'll know a little bit more. I don't want to give you a number or as far as what we're going to need to ask from the county, but we probably will be asking for additional funds from the county to cover a shortfall from where we need to be. But that's just kind of a broad picture of it right now. And as we develop it more, we'll get more detail on that. But we're kind of waiting to see what the House and Senate versions come out to be as well. So are there any questions there?
Board?
Okay. Mr. Cottage, anything you need to add to that? Okay, all right. Next, we're also looking at additional funding sources. So we continue to look for funding sources. One thing we're looking at is a literary loan. That is for construction, and it's capped at a 2% interest rate if we get those loans. So we could possibly look at getting literary loans to help offset some of the CIP costs and construction costs. That would take us going to the Board of Supervisors because it does add to their debt service. So I've been talking to Jeremy Bryant, the acting county administrator, and we're kind of having some conversations about that, and we'll have more continuing conversations as we move forward. There's also going to be construction grants coming out. The state is supposed to release details on those on applications in January, sometime this month. And so what that is, it can pay up between 20 and 30% of a project through the grant. So, for example, if we had a $19 million project, it could pay $5 to $6 million of it if we were, awarded the grant. So once that comes out, we will be applying for that grant for our high school project to offset some of those costs, as well as for the windows and other CIP projects that we have to work on that we know are coming up in the next couple of years. So we're trying to, again, look at other funding options and do as best we can with the grants that we have. Any questions for that?
Board?
Okay. The next thing I have to remind you of is a statement of economic interest. So those are due February 1st is the deadline. And make sure if you use it, it has to be the 2022 version. So if you had one that's another older version, it has to be on the 2022 version. I haven't completed mine yet either, so don't feel bad. And we'll get those, but get them into us as soon as possible. Get them into Ms. McNerney so she can document and get those turned in. We have also put out an RFP for mental health services, and I spoke to this when we did our retreat with the legislators back in November. But we know we have shortcomings with our mental health supports and things from the community supports and in our buildings, and due to how the funding goes and things like that, they're pulling back. So we're currently with Harvest. They've indicated they're going to give us to be less for us from Harvest. So we actually are doing an RFP to see what we can get, and I'm going to let Ms. Petrone kind of speak to that in more detail.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wells. I would like to give you a little background on our situation with day treatment and Medicaid across the state, kind of in the hopes that if you're talking to any legislators or anybody that's in a position of power to make these decisions, that you have all the information and you might be able to advocate for us a little bit. So about 2014, the state privatized Medicaid. It used to be a single-payer public option. And so DMAS would pay all of the therapeutic day treatment and other mental health services as long as they were recommended by a mental health provider. So after they privatized, different insurance companies like Optima, Anthem, Virginia Premier, they got to have a say in whether services were approved or not. So fast forward to 2019, right before COVID, we were having lots of issues with getting students approved for therapeutic day treatment, which, as you know, is a vital service in our buildings for students who have behaviors or who are struggling with mental health or emotional needs. So at that point, we put out our first RFP. We had Horizon Behavioral Health. We put out an RFP and we went with Harvest Outreach. This is not a reflection of either Horizon Behavioral Health or Harvest Outreach. This is a reflection of the state Medicaid system, because the same thing continued to happen. We then have noticed that certain insurance companies, most of them in fact, instead of approving the service for the entire day, are only approving slivers of service. So just to give you some easy numbers, day treatment is billed at 5 units a day. Let's say it's $10 a unit, so that's $50 a day. Right now, they're only approving 1 unit per day for a student. So the reimbursement that the day treatment providers are receiving is 1/5 of what it used to be. They're getting $10 as opposed to $50 a day. So it's not a sustainable service at this point. Most of the providers in the state have stopped providing. In fact, Intercept, who was the provider all through the Roanoke area, pulled out in October with with a 30-day warning. So we've been very fortunate that Harvest has been willing to work with us this long. They will continue to provide day treatment to all of our students through the end of the school year, but we have put out an RFP requesting school-based mental health services. And we're hoping that the people who reply to that RFP will be willing to do more than just therapeutic day treatment, since that does not seem to be sustainable. So that RFP includes substance abuse services, gang prevention services, outpatient therapy, mentoring type services, and we're hoping that we can meet all of our children's needs in a very creative way. But we wanted to give you a heads up on all of this. We should have responses by the end of this month, and we'll start interviewing with the people who provide us with proposals, and we'll make decisions after that. Are there any questions about that?
Board? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Mrs. Patron, thank you so much for your information. How long has day treatment been provided in school? How many years?
I moved to Virginia in 2004, and it was provided then. I don't know how long before that it went.
The day treatment, is this one-on-one care of a student that is not able to behave in class?
Yes, so the students are, every clinician has 6 students assigned to them, but they only work with 1 student at a time. So based on whichever student is in need at that point, they do provide one-on-one pull-out. There's usually a few clinicians in each of our buildings, except for some of our buildings that have fewer students. So they can work with more than 1 student at a time when there's more than 1 clinician.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions from the board? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patron. The next item I have is just recognition for Delegate Ronnie Campbell. As you know, he passed away December 13th after a battle with cancer. And he was able to, even though he was battling cancer, he did come to our meeting that ended in November and was able to come to our legislators meeting. So again, I just want to pass on our respect and condolences to his family, and just thank him for the service he gave our school system. And his current wife was just elected as the new delegate for his district, and so look forward to working with her as we move forward. But I did want to just make a comment that we do appreciate the support he gave us, and the fact that as sick as he was, he still managed to was able to come to our meeting. Next, on a positive note, community dinner. So we have I'm gonna call it our first annual community dinner. So we hope to have it again next year. But on our dinner, January 19th at 6 p.m. at Madison Heights Community Center. And, we'll be providing that. We have about 255 that we have signed up. We had to cap it because we couldn't have too many more people in, because just from the budgetary standpoints, because this is getting paid through our Show Up Amherst and our initiative with some of the grant money we have there. So we have 255 people that have signed up. We also have a representative from Horizon Behavioral Health. We'll have a representatives from Amherst County EMS, and also from the Amherst County Sheriff's Office will be there, sitting up in there as well to give information to parents if they need it, if they request, and also to build some positive relationships with them. But our goal for this in general is just to provide opportunities for our families to interact in a positive manner. And for our guest speaker, she'll be talking to them about, family engagement and positive interactions and positive ways to communicate with your families and stuff. We focus this more on the elementary schools, because basically we're our grant, but also we want to focus on those elementary students. As I said in the past, it's so often if you go out to a restaurant or even sitting around your own house, you're sitting there at the table and all you see are these things in front of everybody's faces. You don't see anybody actually talking to each other. So I think it's important for us to remember how to interact with each other and engage each other in conversation and have those conversations as families. So that'll kind of be one of the focus points of our meeting. And Ms. Patron, is there anything else you would like to add to that?
I would just give a plug to Shamila Keenum. She's our guest speaker. She's a licensed clinical social worker with Grounded Path Counseling over at Second Stage.
Thank you. Another what I want to talk about too is we've identified a need for alternative programs for elementary and middle school students. We're looking at how we can do that in a manner that's within our budget for next year. If it's something we can do, I'll come to you when we do our budget discussions and talk about that. But we have some ideas, but we have some, we have some elementary age students and some middle school age students that right now I think they could benefit from placement other than where they currently are. So we're looking at that. Middle school, right now 6th and 7th graders we send to Fort Hill. We don't have a program for our 6th and 7th graders. Our 8th graders we have a program for at AEC, but our 6th and 7th graders we do not. So we're kind of looking at that a little bit to see what we can do. We don't have large numbers of elementary students and middle school students, but we have enough that we feel that it's something we need to look into. So as we get into the budget in more detail, I will be talking to you about that. It may be something we can't do this year from the budgetary standpoint, but it is something I think we need to look at and discuss a little bit because I think there's definitely a need there, especially if some of our therapeutic day treatment services are reduced and we don't have the ability to really work with those students with the day treatment staff. So something we need to think about, but we'll have more details getting to budget season a little bit deeper. So I just want you to bring it to your attention tonight. The next thing is on January 20th, we have scheduled coffee with the superintendent. Even though I don't drink coffee, there will be some orange juice for me and some coffee for everybody else. But we'll have some snacks and pastries and things like that for people, and it's from 7:30 to 9:30. You're all invited to come by and just talk. It's just a matter for the community to come in and talk with me about their concerns or issues they may be having, and just some positive interaction with people. So, again, on the 20th, it's that Friday morning from 7:30 to 9:30, and we'll be posting some information about that too publicly. So make sure that goes out. But again, I invite you to, if you can get by that morning, you're more than welcome to come by. We'll be in here in this room and just having some social time together. Miss Virginia came to Amherst County Schools. Thanks to Gary Rokes for driving her around. She had a vehicle issue the morning she was supposed to get here, so we had to go pick her up. Miss Ferguson from Central actually went out and picked her up and brought her to the school, and then Mr. Rokes graciously agreed to drive her around for a couple days. And we went on a picnic lunch and went to Briar Patch, and he had a good time. So, but thank you, Gary, for doing that. But what she did, she really focused. So Victoria Schwa is Miss Virginia, and she came to our elementary schools and on the 5th and 6th, and she spoke about making positive choices and positive decisions, and the dangers of drug and alcohol use, and also how to be a leader and what is a leader. And she spent about 30 to 45 minutes at each school talking with the kids, and she was very personal and interacted well with the students. I got to go see her a couple times at a couple different schools, and we had very good response. The students were talking about her and going home and talking to the parents about her, so it was very positive interaction with our kids. So we really want to thank her for coming here and doing that. And if you hadn't had a chance to see her, it was a good presentation. So we do want to thank her for doing that. The next thing I have is budget priorities. If you have any budget priorities that you feel we need to have moving forward, if you could email those to me and Ms. Laconage the next week or 10 days or so, and just get those to us so we can make sure we're incorporating those into our thoughts as we work through the budget process, I'd greatly appreciate it. So anything you have that you feel is a hot topic for you, please send it to us so we can make sure we have it in budget discussions.
Okay.
And then the last thing I have is the May school board meeting. And so May school board meeting right now is scheduled for May 11th. That is also the night of CVCC's graduation. So I know Ms. Ligon is very much involved with CVCC, and my clerk of the board has a child who will be graduated from CVCC that evening. Also several students in the school system that graduate from CVCC. And so I'm proposing that we move the school board meeting from the 11th to May 4th, and move it a week early, so that those who would like to go see the graduation and participate in graduation are able to do so. So I'd like just, I guess, consensus of the board to do that, and then we can advertise as necessary.
Is the April meeting during spring break?
We've already moved the April meeting to the
Oh, you
week
did? Okay.
before. Yes, so that's the,
Figured
I
if you
guess
were,
the 4th as well.
if we were at moving meetings to address that one too.
Yeah. So I didn't realize they were going to have the graduation that date, but that is the date that we've been told. So do we need a vote or just a consensus?
Board, what do you say?
I'm fine with it. I
Okay.
think that is one act play, but doesn't that run through the weekend? It's not just a one-nighter.
I don't believe so.
Okay. So it's fine with me.
Okay. Think you got it.
Okay, all right, we'll do the proper advertisements and get that out there so everybody's aware. Okay, all right. And if you have any questions for me, that's all I have. So thank you.
Board, any questions for Dr. Wells? Hearing none.
All right, thank you.
So now we're moving on to committee reports, and we can do individual school board member as information as we go. So, Mr. Rossi, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I'd like to take a moment for everybody to keep the families of our past students in our prayers, and the families and the faculty that are still struggling, and the community, and take a moment to pray for them and keep them in your thoughts. Congratulations to our teachers, and our teacher award tonight was, they're actually teaching robotics to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. That's incredible. I'm not surprised by what I just saw out there in the hall. That is some incredible stuff. I can only imagine what a world would be like if we maybe had the opportunity to see some of that technology when we were, in grade school. What a great impact it's going to have. I'm looking forward to being part of STEM, and really excited about that and technology. And the bus looks incredible. That wrap is something, huh? I've seen some wraps on different vehicles, and they're a great way to show off, but that's doing it with class. It really is. And I kind of want to be around that bus. I want to visit those schools when that happens. I think that's going to be worth every moment. Those eyes, it's going to be better than a Christmas morning, I think. And I'm real excited about that. I know everybody's back from break now, so there's a lot of stuff going on. I know that we're meeting some challenges. I know everybody's working really hard, and we're going to keep moving forward because that's what we have to do. And I appreciate everybody for coming out. And as far as comments tonight, the board does hear our teachers and our community, and I think the vote last meeting brought up conversation, and I think that the topics that have been brought up are now being discussed, and policy can be changed. It's there for us as a guideline, and as we start picking up comments and understanding concerns and supporting our teachers and supporting our community, which is very important, that we move forward with this. I've heard, the phrase that we don't teach that here, which is great. Then opting in or out shouldn't affect the teachers. So keep it clean, and we won't have to worry about anybody opting in or out. So as long as we continue to keep things the way we should, then the opt-in platform shouldn't have an effect on any of those teachers. Now, there is some verbiage that will be addressed, I'm sure, and we'll be waiting for more comments and revisiting that policy. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. Ms. Justice?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone, for sharing tonight. Mr. Maddox, thank you for the vision you have pursued with passion over the last 6 years. This afternoon, my children and I enjoyed exploring your presentation, show and tell. I look forward to seeing the broader horizons for our primary students. This is just fabulous. Dr. Norman and team, what I really appreciated tonight, in addition to all your hard work, is what I heard from our principals. They felt supported, and they didn't feel alone, and that spoke volumes to me as a board member. Mr. Fink, thank you for your input regarding the opportunities available at CVCC, which we might want to take more advantage of as a district. I really appreciate you bringing that to light and your encouragement in that. Teachers, I hear what you're saying. What I hear loudest is we don't have sexually explicit instructional materials in our classrooms, and that is the way it should be. And as we don't, the opt-in would be for that what-if situation, is establishing a policy for that rogue, hopefully won't happen event where there is a material like that, and then we have the opt-in version for parents so that just like a field trip, we get permission from them before we are teaching them something that may not be age appropriate. As far as the library materials, as you shared, there have been 11 challenges thus far, and most likely will be more regarding books that do have sexually explicit material in it. And what I would urge us to do as a district, from my perspective as a board member, is that we revisit our reading policy and that we be able to show how does this sexually explicit content contribute to our curricular goals as a district, and what is our deselection policy, and what are the standards for our selection policy. I would like to see those procedures as a board member. And final, my heart broke over this break, that on December 26th, 5 people in a family after the holidays were swept downstream in our community. That is a deep loss that affects everyone, and my heart goes out to you teachers and you students who have poured your heart and soul into them. And we're praying for them, and I know that these situations will draw us closer together as a community. But I just want to say I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Gov
Gresser?
Gov School didn't have a January meeting, so I have no report from the Gov School. Thank you all for the information you presented tonight. Thank you for our comments. Congratulations to our teacher and support staff of the year, and thank you student reps for your input. Is always appreciated. Thank you.
Ms. Ligon?
I want to echo all the good information tonight, and yes, as Ms. Justice stated, our hearts are heavy over the tragedy that took place over the holiday season, and surely we want to reach out to teachers and to administrators whenever we can. Know that the board is supporting and feeling your feelings on these sort of things. You just don't know what's going to happen sometime. That's why the event that's coming up next Thursday, the community dinner, is just one opportunity for people to get together and to enjoy themselves in a happy situation, because you don't know what the next minute's going to bring. Thank you for letting me be on Laurel as we finish this up. I've enjoyed myself, and great work is being done there. As far as the VSBA delegate, I'm just one of your representatives. Now, I do want to encourage you that the legislative positions are already out there. Just need to look at them and go over them and read your reports from J.T. Kessler weekly. Read all the priorities that's be happening in Richmond, and then we can all work together on this ahead of time. But we're just happy to just be that representative one more time. And yes, extraordinary amount of work is being done, Dr. Norman and your crew and your administrators. And I've been down this road with you all before, and so the road looks long, but it's gonna wind up really soon. There's gonna be some good information come out of it. I deal with outcomes and assessments daily, and Mr. Crawford, you're right. Sometimes when you first see it, you're like, ooh-wee. And then it's like, ooh-wee again. Then it's like, okay, I got this. So we're just happy if we can help you. Don't call us, okay? Y'all just keep up the good work. Don't call me. Don't call. We're praying for you. But that's what I'm saying. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody's involved in this, and we too, the board too, analyzes and looks at things. We don't just take all that home and just throw it somewhere. I look at it, and I've always been interested in this solution. I haven't heard it in 23 years, 24 years yet. What is the solution? Even though we see all of this information, I think we have achievement gaps and we have disproportionalities and all these big words. And at the end of the day, I'm still looking, and I've been reading, and I'm enjoying reading and getting information on what the solution is. And I think it's everybody, family members and teachers. Teachers and administrators can't do this by themselves. So the whole community has to know that we are trying to improve things. I've been just quickly, this whole absentee thing is all to pieces. I mean, the state, I'm just upset the way they look at it. I understand what they're doing, but I'm telling you, people are sick, and I've probably been sick. I haven't missed any work yet, but I've probably been sick more this year than I ever have, and it's only into January. You just wake up, and you can't go to school. I can't go to work. I mean, I don't go with fever. And so kids are sickly, and parents are sickly, and so absentee is occurring. Now, not everybody's sick that don't go to school, so we need for those people to come to school. And I think Dr. Wells and others have said you can't learn if you're not there. But the state needs to have someone really talk to their ears about some types of absenteeisms, not just taking a trip to Orlando in the middle of the school year, but you have 101 fever, and that might be that way for a couple of days. So don't come to school and give it to everybody else. But we understand that, I understand kind of what the state's doing, but then I don't particularly like it. But in closing, congratulations, Mr. Terry.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ms. Thompson. Congratulations to all of us. We're all going to try to make this thing happen one more time this year with a lot of help. I'm excited. Y'all got a lot of work to do. Y'all got a lot of work to do that we are encouraging you to do. So, Mr. Crawford, I just don't know. You're just killing me. I'm talking to him because I know him like that. I mean, y'all just working, But for the kids, I make jokes, but for the kids. And so we all going to come out really good with this. I'm excited. Excited to try this one more time. So call us if you need us, all jokes aside, okay? All right, Ms. Terry. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Ligon.
Call us up.
Ms. Thompson.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the staff for all of your presentation on your school improvement efforts. I know it is a heavy lift, but looking at what you've done so far, I have great confidence that we're going to see, as Dr. Wells does, that growth this year that we want to see. And it is going to take time over years, but as long as we're gaining, we're going in the right direction. And I want to encourage all the principals and the staff to know that I really appreciated something that was said tonight, is that we wanted to find out what was most effective for our students, but that was doable for our teachers because it is a balance. So I know that that's going to be something that you will be giving a lot of effort to, and just want you to know that you have our board support in that. I also, like everyone else here tonight, just want to extend my condolences to the family and the schools and our community for the loss of our students. It is a time of sadness and a time that's very difficult, a time that we can come together and a time that we can love one another, and just appreciate all of the extra support that was placed into the schools. And it's going to take time. And our hearts and our prayers will continue to be with you and all that are involved. I also want to say, Mr. Maddox, thank you for your presentation tonight and bringing that to us. That and the Elementary Future Night, I think it's just a huge step in the right direction. And I love to see the focus that I'm seeing on the elementary schools, because that's where it starts. Then our students grow, and we will see those blossom as they go into the middle school and the high school. Want to say congratulations to our Teacher of the Year and our Staff Member of the Year, Mrs. Ashton and Mrs. Alexander. So congratulations, and thank you for such a stellar job. You wouldn't have received that award if you weren't an exceptional staff member and teacher, so thank you. I also want to say that, Board, anything we can do legislatively wise to look at our mental health services and things that when we talk to our legislators about that discrepancy that was presented to us tonight, it's definitely something that we need to advocate for as we talk to those that are at our state level. I'm looking forward to the community dinner. Appreciate that very much. I'm also looking forward to working with everyone here on the board one more year. Mr. Terry, congratulations. And then as I close, I want to say two things. One, I want to thank the teachers that came and spoke tonight about our policy IIA. And Mrs. Fales, as she said, that we do have some ambiguous language that I think, from my perspective, we probably need to clean up and work on that. But I do thank you for your viewpoints and your input that you've given tonight. And then lastly, I want to say to our community, to our parents, to our students, one of the things that is most important in order to remove learning loss, in order to improve learning for every student every day, and to make a difference in your life as you leave school and go into the workforce, is attendance. You have to show up every single day. And so my heart breaks when I see students that aren't coming to school. So parents, please, please, please encourage your students to come to school every single day. We can't make a difference in their lives if they're not here, and we're trying hard, as you can see with our staff tonight. So thank you again. I appreciate you allowing me to serve as the vice chair one more year.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. So we have not had our STEM meeting yet. It's actually in a couple weeks. So I have nothing to report on for the STEM. And one of the disadvantages sitting to the left is everybody has said everything that you wrote down here. So, but I do want to, say how bad everyone has hurt over this loss of our students and community members. It's a tragedy that nobody should ever have to go through. But we do want to move forward. So let's support our students, support our staff, support our faculty, those who need it, whether they know they need it or not, they do. But thanks for the teachers who came tonight and spoke. We hear you. We, as a board, will look at that and see what we can do and make things like we need it to be. And thanks for all the updates tonight, the construction stuff. I'm really looking forward to finally seeing a new building go back there. Something was a long time coming. Thanks for the schools who, made an election happen. It's a disruption of their day. It's not something that they do all the time. It's, they have to make arrangements. So I did stop by Elon. I think I was the first person there. But it's great to see our schools utilized the way they are. The student reps, when you guys talk about tours and kids coming up to the high school, you guys make such an impression on the middle schoolers. It's an awesome thing that they get to see what they're coming to. And like you mentioned, the tours of, CVCC and those places like that, encourage your fellow student to take advantage of those. They don't know what the other places have got until they go look at it. And, too many times people just write off what they don't know. So if they get involved and do those tours, they get engaged more. So thank you guys for bringing that up. And I would like to say, that we did see that it was Principal Appreciation Week this week. So you guys have quite a job. You guys have got a lot on your shoulders. You got schools to maintain. You got, your administration looking down at you, help, but they're here to help you. They're here to support you. We're here to support you. But you guys do a fabulous job. The students, they won't say it as much, but they appreciate it. They need structure, and you guys are the first block to that. So thank you for all that you do. I said it earlier, Mr. Maddox brought the best toys, but Mr. Rokes brought the biggest smile tonight. So thanks for taking care of Miss Virginia, Miss Virginia while she was here, and thanks to Miss Virginia for coming to the school. I mean, it's neat to have visitors, anybody who comes and, brightens a kid's days and lets them see, things that are out there. And it's just neat to have visitors from outside the school come. So I would also like to thank the board for putting your trust in me. I hope I do as good a job as you expect. And thank you guys for all your support. Okay.
Thank you. So before we move into closed session, Ms. Thompson, I just want to thank you for your time serving as chair and working with us and getting us where we need to be. So thank you for that. And Mr. Terry, looking forward to work with you as we transition into you being chair. So again, thank you for your time. So we have to go in closed session. So pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, it is recommended the board convene a closed meeting for the following. A1, personnel matters to discuss the superintendent's mid-year review.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Board is in closed session.